Welcome to Austin, the heart of Texas charm and creativity. Known for its vibrant energy, eclectic culture, and diverse communities, Austin boasts a tapestry of masterfully designed homes set against its iconic skyline. Join us as we tour an artist's colorful traditional home, a historic Victorian packed with budget-friendly decor hacks, and a 700-square-foot bungalow built for entertaining. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Hi, I'm Allison Kenworthy, the founder of Homeworthy, and we're now offering a membership plan that gives our supporters early and exclusive access to new videos.
Hi, Homeworthy.
I'm Roz.
You're here at my home in Los Angeles?
Come on in. I can't wait to show you around.
With this membership, we invite you to open more doors, discovering new homes, rooms, and personalities available only to those with the keys to our guest house. You'll be part of a community of people who are just as passionate as you are about interior design. To access all of this exclusive content, simply click the Join button below to become a member today. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Erin, and I am so excited to welcome you in to my Austin, Texas home. Hi, my name is Erin Donahue Tice, and right now we are sitting in our 1940 traditional Austin home in Austin, Texas. I am an artist and also now a textile designer. I previously had a career in Chicago and New York as a public relations executive, and after my second child was born, I started painting for truly therapy and a creative outlet. And this was a couple years before we purchased this house, and actually right away when we saw this house, we noticed that there was a guest house out back that was large and looked like it could be a very multifunctional space, but right away I knew it was my art studio. And so I've been lucky enough to have my own home art studio here to be able to create and explore, and now recently developed my textile and wallpaper line, which has my own prints on it. My husband and I and our 3 sons live in the house. William is 7, George is 5, almost 6, and Andrew just turned 2. And it's a very, very active, busy house. It might look like it's put together, but on most days there are footballs and tennis rackets and Nike shoes strewn all over this house. It's definitely a well-loved house with 3 very active little boys. Right now, we are standing in the foyer of our home. When you walk through the front door, immediately you are taken by this blue and cream colored checkerboard floor. From far away, a lot of people think that this is tile. It's actually hand painted over the original hardwoods. It took a team of hand painting experts about 3 days to complete this floor. They used a special epoxy process, and what I love about this floor is that you can truly see it from almost any angle in our house. So when you're peeking through from the living room or the dining room or even standing upstairs, you see the checkerboard, and you'll see as we walk through the house that this blue really connects the home. So we have pops of blue in pretty much every single space in our house, and it all starts with this floor. Also, I'd like to point out in this space that I like it to feel very collected in my home. So some of the art we have hanging here, I found at the Austin Antique Mall, like these little pieces. This is a piece that my husband actually found before we were even married at an antique store in New York City. Over here we have some Scottish paintings that were uncovered from my husband's family's Scottish side, and they've been in our family for a very long time. Over here, these are some other antique pieces I found at an antique fair, and we have Cocker Spaniels, so This actually looks almost identical to our dog Brady, and this looks like my sister-in-law's dog Tuxedo, so we love those pieces. I've got a bone inlay table here, which I always have something fresh sitting on top of this. I like to greet people with a pop of something that is living. I usually have an orchid in a terracotta pot or some other flowering plant. When we were thinking about how to fill this welcoming foyer space, we knew that we wanted an antique piece. I am a brown furniture sucker. I love an old school pop, and our interior designer sourced this beautiful, I believe it's a writing desk that we're using as a console table. She sourced it from an antique collector in Houston, and it's actually where I store all of my table linens. So I have quite the collection, you can see. I've got placemats, I've got silverware, so it's actually very functional and it's very old. And I have a collection of these muted blue chinoiserie vases, and I always love to have fresh flowers in them as much as I can. It's hard sometimes with 3 kids running around, but I love just stopping by Trader Joe's or the local grocery store and getting fresh blooms and keeping this table looking very vibrant all the time. And what I love about this space is that we mixed kind of a deep muted olive color. You'll see it here on these chairs that kind of flank the sides of the table, as well as this ottoman, which is an olive velvet with nail heads. We love mixing modern and traditional elements, so you'll get the traditional sense from this beautiful mahogany table to more of a modern edge with this Art Deco mirror that hangs above the table. I also just love filling a space with interesting items. So while we've got the chinoiserie vases, we also have a pop of terracotta to kind of ground this table. And then we have this modern piece of art back here, which is framed in a really beautiful gilt gold frame. I love little hacks like switching out lampshades to kind of make a space feel more personal. These sconces, which are on either side of this mahogany table, came with very basic ivory shades, and I sourced these gathered hand-blocked shades on Etsy. And it's something simple, but it really does add more personality and depth to the space. And the olive green, again, plays well off the chair, as well as the stool underneath the table. I wanted to point out this painting back here, which was a score that I found on the website Cherish. And I think I purchased it for about $200. And I love this painting, first and foremost because it's a lady. And as the sole lady in this home, it kind of screams to me matriarch and makes me kind of harness my female energy and kind of have her looking over our family. And I just think that it's a beautiful painting, and she's got an olive green draped dress, which plays off all of the olive green in this space very well. In Austin, a traditional home means something a lot different than it does in the Northeast, which is where we moved from when we moved to Texas in 2014. But in our neighborhood, a traditional home means it was built in anywhere from the 20s to the 40s. And so our home was built in 1940. It actually has a historic designation because of the families that lived here. And it really means that we have to keep the integrity of the facade of the house and maintain its traditional look from the era in which it was built. Now we're gonna head from the foyer into our formal living room, so come along with me. This is a really large space, and we weren't quite sure how we were gonna fill it with furniture because it actually required quite a bit of pieces to kind of fill the space. But we really worked with our designer on a layout that made sense. So we have very nice conversation areas with double chairs and a sofa over here. Something that I love to point out in this room is this Federalist mirror, which I found at the Hamptons Antique Fair about 5 years ago. It was cracked and falling apart, and it almost didn't make it home to Austin from the Hamptons because it was so fragile. But I found it for a steal, and I just knew that one day I would have a place for it, and voila, here it is. And I think that the gold pop and kind of the antique look really make this space feel classic and traditional. But then here you have below the pedestal with a very sculptural statue sitting on top of it, which gives that modern edge. I love the brown that we used in this space. It feels very earthy but sophisticated at the same time. We used a Greek key trim along this table. This table really isn't functional at all, but it fills the space nicely. We have this humongous chinoiserie vase with a pop of yellow flowers, and the natural light in this room makes me so happy. Sometimes I come in here and sit to read and just love kind of that pop of natural sunlight that we get in this space. Over in this part of the space, we have a large gold and glass coffee table. I love the items that I've collected along the way over here. This is a chinoiserie black and gold box that I found at an antique mall. We have a classic Hermes ashtray. We have a collection of coffee table books. I love having eucalyptus in here. This blue and white sofa was actually in our former home, and we loved kind of the lines of the white trim around the blue and the pop that it gave, and so we knew we wanted to find a space for it in this home. And at first it didn't make sense to us to kind of mix blue and brown and black, but again, keeping with the theme of the checkerboard in the foyer, we wanted to find connection points in each space to bring in that blue, which the sofa does quite nicely. I also like to point out that my designer, Kristen Nix, taught me that every space needs a pop of black, and this space, I think, does that very nicely without overpowering the space. So we have a chinoiserie chest over here that was antique that gives that pop of black. My husband always wanted our kids to learn to play the piano, so we filled the space with a baby grand piano, and now both of my older kids are taking lessons. We have a small black kind of conversation cocktail chair here with a pop of black. So I really love that notion of having just pops of black here and there to kind of modernize and ground the space. This is actually a painting that I created myself. It's part of my abstract floral series, and we knew that we needed a really large piece above this sofa, and I love that this brings in that abstract kind of modern edge, but at the same time, it's floral, it's green and blue, and it kind of plays off all the colors in the space nicely. I also love an art light. This is by Circa, and it really kind of lends that museum quality to the art. And I always recommend for my own art clients to, if it's possible, when possible, add an art light. It looks more sophisticated, and actually you can see the piece better under the light. This is one of my all-time favorite paintings. It's by a female artist named Caroline Boynton, and she is so talented. She paints her pieces and then she actually makes pottery and affixes it to the piece to lend a 3D quality. She also frames all of her pieces in gorgeous antique frames, and I love how this piece is subtle in the color scheme yet adds a really nice abstract modern touch to this space. So my favorite thing about this space is kind of the juxtaposition between edgy and traditional at the same time. The house really needed an interior facelift, so the family that had previously lived here actually had 3 sons. At the time we only had 2 sons, now we have 3. I guess it was an omen, and they had done a really nice job giving the house a facelift in the 90s, but we were buying the house in 2019, and so we really needed to give the house a completely new kind of interior look. So we needed to paint, we needed new wallpaper, we needed new hardwood floors. We basically had to refinish all of the hardwood floors throughout the entire house. We needed new surfaces, from new marble to a new island countertop. We needed to redo the bathrooms. And we also needed to kind of open up the space between the kitchen and the living room. So it wasn't an extreme amount of structural work, but there was quite a bit of kind of an interior makeover, if you will, that needed to be done. This is the doorway to our sunroom, and I just wanted to pause for a moment and point out the way that we hung the art. So we have 3 pieces from an artist named Catherine Booker Jones. She does these geometric shapes on paper as well as canvases, but we have these beautiful paper pieces and we only had 3 of them. So instead of hanging all 3 together, I think it's cool to kind of hang art in a way that's unexpected. So hanging the 2 that go together, and then on this side, hanging 1 with two antique pieces above it gives it that juxtaposition that I love of kind of off-kilter, traditional and modern at the same time. All right, let's head into the sunroom. Through this walkway is our sunroom, which is normally used as our kids' playroom for this stage of life. But what I love about this space is how light-filled it is. It gets a lot of sun, and you can see our pool from this space and our screened porch as well. I think this is a space that will really grow with our family over time. So right now, while it's a space where our kids can hang out and watch their shows and play with their Hot Wheels, and we have a little library for them to read their books, I see this room transforming as they get older, and we kind of take the space over a little bit more to be a card room, a hangout room, a conversation room. So it's really multifunctional. Over here, I'll point out that our sofa is covered in a quadrille fabric, which we've repeated on the wallpaper, and it kind of envelops the space. We actually can't take credit for this idea. We took it from Tory Burch and her gorgeous Southampton home. She used a variation of this pattern with the pattern on pattern effect, and it was in a sunroom as well, and we just loved the look, so we kind of tweaked the colors and made it our own. We also have a table here from Oomph Home. They're based in Connecticut, and I love a coffee table that's collected with plants and coffee table books and different curiosities. I love what we did on this wall. So when we were renovating our home, we knew that we wanted to build in some storage because this was an old home and actually didn't have a ton of storage space. And we knew that we would use this room for our kids and their games and their homework. So we had some space here and we built in cabinets. So you can see this is the homework cabinet. There are toys hiding behind those cabinets. There is also storage for my entertaining dishware. And what I love is that we added a perforated screen to each of these cabinets. And what's really cool is that it looks like it's seamless, but there's actually plexiglass on the inside, so they're somewhat indestructible. In this last cabinet, it's actually a mix of some of my dinnerware and kids' toys. We have things like lettuceware, vintage bowls that I use to entertain, vases. These are tulip ears that hold flowers. I have Magelica vases and pitchers. We've got bunnies for Easter entertaining. So there's a big mix in here, and I like to kind of hide things where I can. So when you close this, you would never know really what's behind here, and it kind of blends in with the wall, but adds some interest with kind of the perforated trellis effect. What I love most about our house is the way that it makes me feel. It makes me feel really happy and joyful. I feel like it's a really good mix of color, but also a neutral palette. So when I'm in a really happy, excited mode, there's a lot of color and fun wallpapers, but there's also kind of a calming presence. The room we're sitting in now has a really nice mix of neutrals in it. And I also love the flow of the house. It's really made for entertaining. It's a traditional style house where there are separate rooms, but they flow from one room to the next. So you can really entertain here, have a dinner party in the dining room, flow right into the kitchen, flow right into the living room for cocktails, and the first floor really lends itself to being able to entertain. Welcome to my formal dining room. This is probably my favorite space in the entire house. I always dreamed of having a formal dining room when I was growing up in Columbus, Ohio. My mom had one and loved to entertain. And this is the first dining room I've ever had myself. And I kind of felt like I had graduated into adulthood when we moved into this house and I was able to have dinner parties and entertain. I love that we can seat 8 in here, and actually this table extends where we've had a dinner party with 12. We love to entertain, I love to cook. I actually just launched these plates with my own designs on them, so I love mixing and matching my own dinnerware with vintage china, with the china that was handed down through my grandmother's family to me. I have a china cabinet that was actually built into the space, and we kind of zhuzhed it up when we moved in. We used a paint color throughout this space called Halo. It's actually throughout the entire first floor, so it kind of connects every room. And my favorite part of this whole room is the wallpaper. So this is a Schumacher design called Madame Pompadour, and I love that it looks hand painted. It's very reminiscent of a Gracie or Dégournay paper, but it's actually just a printed wallpaper. So it really lends itself to looking like a hand painted mural without actually being one. And again, I live in a house with 3 sons. This is my girly space. This is my happy place where I can feel very feminine, and my husband's actually okay with it. This is a painting by Catherine Booker Jones. She actually did the black and white pieces over in my living room. And when I saw this pink and red painting, I just knew I had to have it. I didn't know how it was going to play in this space since it is pretty bold and pretty modern. But again, I love that mix of old and new. And the red pen that you can see running through it just speaks to my heart. I love this piece. And then we flanked it with oyster plates that are very vintage and old that I found on eBay to kind of give it more of that kind of old and new feel. I love our chandelier in here. Again, it looks very old, but it's actually a newer piece that we found through Circa. It's by J. Randall Powers. He's a designer in Texas that did a collaboration with Circa Lighting. And I love that it's big and reflects so much light. One thing that people are always surprised about when they come into our dining room is the ceiling. If you look up, you'll see that it's lacquered in a sage green, and people always think that we must have had it painted. It's actually wallpaper. There is lacquered wallpaper available. This is Philip Jeffries, where you can get that seamless kind of lacquered look, but it wears a lot better than paint. And I love that pop, that unexpected pop when you're sitting here having a dinner with friends and then you look up and it's very reflective and not something that you would expect to see. As I said, I love to entertain and cook dinner for friends. We actually purchased the dining set in here from the previous owners. They were downsizing and didn't have a need for it anymore. So I love this mahogany table. It's hard to see with the tablecloth on top, but I love to set a beautiful tablescape. It's one of my forms of creativity. And then we actually also purchased this coordinating sideboard from the previous owners. And I just love kind of the old school look of the dining table and the sideboard mixed with more modern edges like the lacquered ceiling. We recovered our chairs with a lovely pink velvet. It's actually performance fabric, so when people are dining here and they spill some red wine, it wipes up super easily, and the pink lends itself to that very feminine look that I was going for in this space. One of the things we loved about this house were some of the original elements. For instance, this fireplace has a really cool toile pattern that's a bit of a rust color, and at first I wasn't sure how it was gonna look with the whole space, but I love this element of bringing the old in with the new, and each little toile tile tells a story. This is our casual family room space where our family spends a ton of time. I love to point out the pop of coral on this sectional in our family room. It was a bit of a risk to put a big coral sofa in this space, but I think that it adds that pop of color that I was looking for and just makes us feel very happy. It also feels very southern in this room. There's a mix of blue and kind of old school patterns on the sofa and the pillows. But then again, we have modern art, and this is actually a collection of pieces that I created myself. These are collages, and I wanted to frame them in very crisp white frames to give a modern edge. We added some mirrored elements in this space to give it a little bit more reflection since it doesn't get a lot of natural light. We have an antiqued mirrored top on this chat table right here. We also added these sconces above since we didn't have space for lamps, and so we maximized the space. And these shades are again from Etsy. I love my Etsy finds. We added a modern plaster white chandelier here to bring in more light. And then we built in this bookcase over here, which obviously hosts a large television, but we wanted it to feel very southern and fresh, and we painted the entire thing with a paint color called Polaris Blue, which I love. We also added art lights above the bookcases, which I think really adds a special touch and again brings more light into the space since we don't have a lot of natural light. One thing that we did in this space when we were under renovation was we completely removed a wall that was here. So this was kind of a peekaboo 90s bar situation where you could put your head through, and it just didn't fit with kind of the vibe we were going for, and we wanted to connect these spaces. So we were able to knock it down and add a beam right here. We covered the entire space, family room to kitchen, in a very light bluish gray grass cloth, and it connects the spaces. We even grass clothed the ceiling to kind of make these two spaces feel like one. Now the kitchen, you'll see that we used the same Polaris Blue paint color on the island to kind of connect these spaces again. I really wanted a butcher block for our island. I always dreamed of having kind of an old school butcher block in here, but we used kind of this flat edge here to kind of make it a little bit more modern. It's definitely taken a beating over the last few years, but in my mind, that just adds to the patina of having a butcher block. I love our kitchen. It feels very open and user-friendly. We actually didn't have to change the layout of the kitchen itself too much. And the nice thing about having a kitchen that's separate from the formal dining room is that you can be in here cooking and it doesn't disrupt your dining guests. I love to cook when I have the time, and one of my go-to recipes for a dinner party is the Barefoot Contessa roast chicken. It's super easy. I usually make 2 of them for if I'm feeding 8 or 10 people, roast vegetables, a simple green salad, easy vinaigrette, done and done. When I'm with my family, my kids love pizza, and we actually have a pizza oven that's outside, and my husband does pizza night on Fridays. That's his role, and we're making the pizzas in here, baking them outside, and it's just like a fun Friday, easy thing for our family. This is our everyday dining space where our family gathers for meals when we're all together, which is not as often as I would like these days, but we try our best. And I knew that I wanted to be able to seat a large amount of people. We've got 3 kids ourselves. And so we built in this banquette. It's actually, I say built in, but it's actually not affixed to the wall. It's a piece of furniture, but it's large and can seat a good number of people. And one of the coolest things about this banquette is that we covered the fabric, we coated it with a laminate, so it's wipeable. And with 3 young boys, trust me, you want your furniture to be wipeable when you're sitting at the kitchen breakfast nook. Our powder room, I like to say, is the jewel box of the home, and it's right off the kitchen. It's right here, and we used this really fabulous quadrille coral wallpaper that is a nod to the big coral couch in the family room, and I love the brass elements with the fixtures and the big brass mirror. It just kind of feels very southern and fancy. And these are actually some of my favorite pieces of art. This is Casey Hughes, and this is Paige Kalina Fullman. I love showcasing other female artists in my own home. Right through this walkway is where we grill and make pizzas. And about 10 steps along the way is my art studio. This is my art studio, and it truly is my happy place. I feel so blessed to have a studio at home where I'm able to come out here for an hour, work on a painting, pop back inside to check on my kids, and kind of come and go throughout the day. As you can see, I have a lot of paintings that are in progress, ones that are over here framed, ready to go out to clients. I also have started storing my new textiles and pillows out here, slowly running out of space. But as you can see over here, I like to be really super messy when I paint. So I kind of don't care like where all this stuff goes. I'm kind of a free, messy painter when I'm in my zone, and my husband, God bless him, has kind of let this be my domain and take it over and make it my own space. This is one of my new favorite pieces. I haven't framed it yet. I think it's almost done, but it's not quite there. I'm experimenting with kind of more modern geometric looking florals that are in a monochrome palette. And this citron color has always been one of my favorite colors to paint with. I think it's so shocking and bold, but also can kind of go with a lot of different colors in people's spaces. So this is one of my favorites that I'm currently working on. Now let's head on upstairs to check out some of our bedrooms. At the top of the stairs on our staircase landing is this massive watercolor painting that's on a canvas board. And I wanted to tell you a little story about this painting because it's actually really cool. We found this piece at an estate sale near our neighborhood. And it was so big I had to hire somebody to drive it home for me, but I got it for a steal and I had no idea where I would hang it. Eventually it ended up here. But what's really unique about this painting is that it once lived in the Dakota building on the Upper West Side of New York City. And it lived in a famous horror film movie star from the 20s in his apartment at the Dakota. And I had never heard of this film star, but my husband actually had, and apparently he was a big deal in the 20s. And this was his piece. It somehow made its way to Austin, Texas, and now it lives here. And I think that the colors are so soothing and subdued, and we framed it in this antique looking gold frame. And every time I see it, it just reminds me that you never know where you'll find your next treasure. And to find out the story behind it was just really super cool. I think our home has a soul because of the history of who lived here previously. When I did some research on the house, I found out that only sons have ever lived here. So there's never been a daughter in a family that has actually lived here. And that really spoke to me because I have 3 sons and I felt a connection to the previous owners, even though I didn't know them personally. We actually received a book with the house about the previous owners and what their careers were and what their family life was like. And that made me feel this soulful connection to the home. I also feel like when you walk in the foyer, we painted the hardwood floors right in the foyer with this really amazing checkerboard pattern, which was Kristen Nix's idea. And it's become kind of the calling card of the house. It's blue and white, which is a little different than the traditional black and white checkerboard you might see. And I feel like people kind of, when they see that picture on Instagram or on a blog, or even just my friends that come through the house, it kind of is synonymous with it being my house now, and I love that. Follow me into our bedroom. When we were designing our bedroom, we knew that we wanted to do an old school pattern on pattern effect in here, and the Quadrille Arbor de Métis pattern was it. We just knew that it was the right one. In a neutral palette, this pattern comes in so many colorways, and we loved kind of the neutral effect of a very soothing, calming space. And we created this canopy headboard that gives the room a lot of height. It blends seamlessly with the wallpaper behind it. And truthfully, I always wanted to feel like a princess sleeping under a canopy, and this was it for us. We added some more modern elements like these bungalow white nightstands. We've owned this Hendredon mahogany dresser for so many years. My husband actually had it in his Upper East Side apartment before I even met him. He has really good taste. And we knew that it would have a home somewhere in this new home when we moved here, and we could barely get it in the house. We were talking about getting a crane to hoist it over a balcony and all kinds of scenarios, but luckily our movers were very creative and somehow got it around the corner from the staircase into this room, and it fits perfectly here. I love collecting different nudes and kind of etchings and sketches, and so I thought that it was a cool place to add some of those, to stack them and kind of rest them on the top of this dresser, again, to give the space height. These are Ralph Lauren lamps that flank each side of the bed. I love the touch of black again. It gives the space more of a modern, kind of edgy contemporary feel, while the wallpaper and the whole effect is super traditional. We repeated the fabric on these end tables with the funky looking feet to again play that kind of traditional and modern theme in here. These ivory chairs over here were a Facebook Marketplace find. It's funny, I found them on Facebook Marketplace. They're really well-made Lee Industries chairs for about $200. Recovered them in an ivory white velvet that's performance-based, so that you can easily rub off the stains if that ever happens. But I love the pop of white against the wallpaper. And then we hung these intaglios in a grid pattern to kind of fill up this wall and put the sunburst in the middle. And this room just really brings me so much joy and happiness. I love reading in here. I love looking out the window. We have a large patio right off the space, and it's very soothing and calming. Our bathroom is right off of our bedroom, and the vibe here was New York City hotel. So as you can see, we went heavy on the Carrara marble and really tried to make a very crisp, clean, traditional but fresh feeling space, almost like a New York City hotel. We actually trimmed out the mirrors with marble and used mirrors to take up almost the entire wall so that we got a lot more light and reflection in here. We have a very large bathtub, which we didn't have a bathtub in our previous home, so we love soaking. And then we've got that big glass shower right next to the bathtub, which really gives it that big, open, light-filled feel in here. This space actually used to be a tiny galley bathroom, and we opened it up, removed a closet, put the shower next to the bathtub. Everything feels very crisp and light-filled and just like a New York City hotel. Come along and follow me to my older boy's shared bedroom. This is William and George's little boy heaven. It is in a patriotic theme, and I love how boyish it feels. We incorporated the patriotic theme in a lot of elements in here. For instance, this flag was found on eBay for $13. It's a real American flag, and I had it framed, and I love how large it is and how it takes up the space. We had these custom twin beds made and upholstered by Joseph & Company in Houston. The red bedspreads have been with us for a long time. They were a Target find, and I just love them. They're easy to wash and very lightweight for our Texas weather. We also have a red and blue upholstered chair where we have read many bedtime books. And we used that same Polaris blue color throughout the space. One of the really cool things that we uncovered when we were renovating this house was the shiplap. There were a lot of layers of paint and wallpaper on top of this shiplap. We had no idea the shiplap even existed. We started scraping, and we uncovered this gorgeous original shiplap and decided that it was too pretty to not kind of revitalize it and keep the integrity of the original home. So we painted it this pretty white color and then accented it with the Polaris blue around these shutters and the trim on our original windows in this space. We've had this Louis Vuitton cup vintage poster in our family for a really long time. My husband actually found it at a poster store in Boston a million moons ago before we knew each other, and it's lived in different homes and different spaces. And when we moved into this space and needed something large to fill this spot, I knew it would be perfect. It kind of plays on the Americana theme. It's got the red and blue in it, and I love this poster and kind of the memories it has of living in New York with us and then coming to Austin with us, and it's just a really cool, large poster. My son is a budding guitarist, so we have a little electric guitar in the room. Okay, now finally I'm gonna show you a really cool secret hideaway, my husband's office. If you come through here, this is our bedroom closet. And we had to do a bit of structural work in here to kind of open it up. And then there's a secret door right here. It's a little Harry Potter. Watch your head. This is an original door. This space was actually nothing when we bought the house, but we built it out to include more storage. And then as you walk into here, you'll find my husband's office, which sits right above our garage. As you know, we all had to kind of shift gears during COVID and find new ways to work. And my husband has a lot of monitors, a ring light, lots of wires. He is in here a lot, but we tried to make it chic and very masculine feeling for him. We've got a nod to Texas here with the Longhorn chandelier. We've got a very cool patterned carpet, which is reminiscent of an Hermes H. We covered these little chairs in a very striking ikat fabric. He's got all of his memorabilia from golf tournaments to diplomas to kind of old school gallery looking art. And then he's got a built-in back there with kind of all of his family pictures. And it's just a cool little hidden spot. To me, the word home really means family. I was lucky enough to live in just a couple homes growing up with my parents, and I have such vivid memories of those homes and gathering around the dinner table with my parents and with extended relatives over holidays. And I would like to create those same traditions for my family here. We love having a dining room where we can host Christmases, and this room is where we do our Christmas presents, and we have a big tree. And to me, home really means family.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Stephanie. Welcome to my house in Texas. Please come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Be sure to visit our website, homeworthy.com, to discover amazing furniture, art, accessories, and more, all handpicked by our editors to help transform your house into a home. All of the items are inspired by the episodes you see here on Homeworthy. Enjoy!
Hi there, I'm Stephanie Stallard. We are in Bartlett, Texas right now, outside of Austin, about 45 minutes. I live here with my two dogs. This is Ralph and Floyd. And I have been renovating this house for the last 2.5 years, taking it from definitely a livable home that needed a massive facelift and making it my own, and I'm excited to show you. So this house was built in about 1906 to 1910. It was built by a gentleman named T. Denton, and he actually owned the lumber yard here in Bartlett. And there's some really neat signage of his stamped wood under the stairs that says T. Denton, Bartlett, Texas. I did go down to the courthouse in the county and sat at a computer in the basement for a couple of hours trying to find the history of all the different owners to see if there was anything really interesting there. It's definitely went through quite a few hands over the years. The owners prior to me were here 20, prior to that another 20. The gentleman that was here 2 owners ago said that he purchased it from a military colonel that had just let it sit for years and years, and I was so curious what was the paint color on the outside when he bought it, and he said there was no paint, it had all chipped away, and so he did a ton of work in this house with his family, and it was really great to be able to hear that story from him. Welcome to my entryway. So this is the first space people walk into when they come through the front door. It is grand. We have 2 sets of pocket doors. I mean, you could fit 2 beds in this space. It's a lot of room, and it has just this beautiful original detailing back here that's called fretwork, kind of separating the 2 spaces into the stairway. In this room, I did a lot. I peeled back so many layers. There was fabric on the walls. There was then wallpaper behind that. And before I could remove the wallpaper, I had to pull those nails and staples that were holding the fabric up. So yeah, it was just a peel back process. I ended up adding the wainscoting or the beadboard into this space, and I kind of did that because I ended up finding behind the wall some wallpaper, original wallpaper that had 3 different patterns. It had the lower pattern, it had kind of the band, and then it had an upper pattern. And so I kind of wanted to mimic that line across the space that had been there before. And so I kind of just cleaned the space up, put some neutral colors in. This flooring was here when I bought the house, and I'm sure that there's wood floor underneath. Hopefully the next owners would want to maybe uncover that as well, because I think that's just such a beautiful part of the house, especially since it was in such good condition. But yeah, I filled the room with all kinds of things. One of my favorite pieces is this Cuba cloth. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I did end up finding it at an estate sale hanging in a closet with blankets and quilts. And when I brought it to check out, the woman running the estate sale was like, I'm so glad somebody saw that and knew that it was something special. It was folded into a piece, you know, this big. And she didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was. So I went home, I Google imaged it, and it's very old. My understanding, and again, I hope I get this correct, my understanding is that Cuba cloths originated from the Congo, and women wore them as skirts. So they would spin around, and it was a skirt. It's got just beautiful colors, beautiful texture. It's aged so well. So I did want to use this space to display it because it's a big piece. I hung the Cuba cloth using kind of these quilt hooks. It's a nail in the wall that you hook this wood piece onto. I was looking for different ways to find to hang it, but you truly just unscrew this and it falls out. And so that was a fun measuring project to figure out where to space all of those and make sure they were level, but I think it turned out really great. So I love having this piece here. It's also a conversation piece. I think, you know, a lot of people don't know what it is, and it's a fun story to tell. And I always like to learn something. This piece, there's a story when we get to the primary bathroom. There's a fun story about this piece. I found it at an antique store in Austin. And it's just an old shop table, you would think. But when I got it here to the house, I cleaned this up, which is a metal kind of measuring tape. It's got the sort of yardage in here. So I imagine this used to be used as a fabric measuring at an old general store. But when I was cleaning out the inside, I ended up finding an original store receipt, which told me where it came from. And it came from a general store out of Shiner, Texas. And yeah, I ended up finding later on in the bathroom, which I'll show you, a piece on Facebook Marketplace. And in the listing, it said it came from a general store in Shiner, Texas. So I don't know for sure 1,000%, but I do feel like I reunited 2 pieces that, you know, were together a long time ago and now are together again. So other things in this room, I mentioned the fretwork here that is original throughout the house. When I got the house, if there was original woodwork, stained, unpainted, I would never touch it. I would leave it as is. But if something was already painted, you know, again, I hope the new owners of the house, the next owners, you know, would want to take that time to peel back the layers of the paint and find that original stained wood. But if it was left untouched, I left it untouched. So this entryway, you see some of the fretwork is painted, some of it is still the stained wood. I just gave it a little bit of a refresh, but the detail work in this is incredible. And so really a showstopper for the house. This piece, which I found in a antique store in Minnesota, it's called a batik, which is painted basically on silk. And so I just love the piece for its color, its texture, it's unique, it's different, it's definitely not painted on a canvas, and I think it's perfect for this space. So I would love to show you my living room next, which is just off the entryway through one of 3 sets of pocket doors. I was living in Austin for about 7 years before moving up here, and when I moved to Austin, I wanted to buy a house and I wanted a project where I could renovate something old with character, but I just wasn't finding that in Austin at that time in my budget. And so I decided to just get a new build and lived there for some time, but that kind of yearned to work on this old project. I was watching so many other people do it on Instagram, following cheap old houses and seeing, you know, all of these houses pop up all across the country. And kind of there was a pivotal point where I was sort of like, okay, I'm either gonna do it or I'm just gonna keep talking about it. And I was almost about to move to upstate New York because there's so many options there, just, you know, cheap and just a ton of options with amazing character. And then I saw this house pop up, and it is about 45, 50 minutes up outside of Austin, and I kind of weighed the pros and cons of, you know, moving to upstate New York, which I lived in New York City once, and I loved that area, the Northeast. But this kept me closer to my friends, closer to my family, and, you know, risk reward. And I ended up with, you know, the house that checked every single one of my boxes with the original character. And, you know, still livable though. I had to be able to live here and renovate at the same time. And so, yeah, I definitely got through the project more quickly than I thought I would, but it was what I was looking for at the time, and even now for sure. This is the living room, and it definitely has had some updates, but I did keep the fabric on the walls that the prior owner put up. I loved the green, I love the solid. I think some of my favorite pieces in here, this coffee table, this marble coffee table, is my best thrift find of my life. I found it on Facebook Marketplace down in San Antonio. I had to run down there in the morning because I knew somebody else was going to steal it. It's solid marble. It's got a solid marble base. These sell for $3,000 on First Dibs or Cherish, but I got mine for $125. And the wildest part is when I was picking it up from the owner, she said, yeah, you just missed it. There was a whole dining room table that went with it. So I was super bummed to miss that, but this is a piece that I will carry with me over and over and again from house to house. So I love this one. On top of the coffee table, in real life, I move these books around because this is also where I eat. But it's just a lot of books that I've collected from estate sales. Again, you're going to hear estate sales, Facebook Marketplace, thrifting. But yeah, it's books, it's different tchotchkes, it's rocks. Girls love rocks. I don't know why. But a really cool old antique domino set, again, with textures, stones, those metals, brass, those sort of things. I love to just mix all of those things together. So the coffee table is representative of kind of all those different materials. One of the really neat things on the coffee table is this tic-tac-toe, which lived in my grandmother's house in Tennessee during my childhood. And I saw she had put it in the basement one year, and I asked her if I could have it. So I think you see a lot of these days at places like West Elm, but this one actually has a lot of meaning to me. Myself and all my cousins played with it, and so I love that it's now in my house. I think these chairs make a huge statement in this space. Again, Facebook Marketplace. They were white leather, and the leather was kind of sticky. And so I knew I wanted to put a print on them. I found this print and had them reupholstered by a gentleman here in Bartlett, which it's a very small town. And so to find an upholsterer here was a win. And he did a really nice job kind of with, you know, getting the checker print to match up perfectly. And so he was a really skilled tradesperson that it was nice to work with. And I paired a pattern on pattern, which is something I learned from many of the designers that I follow, but I paired it with kind of these probably old rug pillows. And so, yeah, I think these chairs are another one that would be very hard for me to let go if I was to ever sell them. And there's a few sets of chairs around the house that I feel that way about. Obviously, the original fireplace. So again, I want to preface, this was not wood before I found it. I would never paint unstained wood. It was white when I bought the house. It was painted white. And I really wanted these original tiles to pop. Some of them are a little shaky, but they're so old and perfect that I thought the black would kind of center this room and let those tiles do their thing. And so obviously this is the showstopper of the space, just this beautiful original fireplace, and there's 3 of them in the house and 1 that I ended up putting back in. Unfortunately, when I purchased the house, none of the fireplaces were usable, and so I have not had the time to make them usable. I think that would be something that is definitely doable. The chimney stacks are still there, and it's just something that I didn't want to put my time and attention to. And also it's Texas. I would probably use it 1 day out of the year. So it was not high on the list for me. On the fireplace mantle, gosh, I feel like I talk about materials all the time. I'm super drawn to stone. I found these marble books, which are super heavy, solid marble, 3 of them, 3 sets. Found these at an antique store in Taylor, just about 15 minutes south from me. Found this hand at an estate sale, and then this wood piece at an estate sale as well. So kind of just trying to mix different materials and create visual interest. So if you're looking to start bringing secondhand pieces into your house, as far as estate sales go, there's estatesales.net, and that's available anywhere you live. And something I like to do is the emails for those come out about maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, and they tell you what estate sales are happening in your area on, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I scroll through the pictures. If there's maybe like 2 or 3 things that are really of interest for me out of those photos, then I will make a trip out to go to that estate sale, just because I get a sense that that person might have more things that I want. But it takes a lot for me to want to actually go to one. So there has to be enough there for me to make that trip. And then on Facebook Marketplace, it is about consistency. It is about being on Facebook Marketplace every day. It's about the algorithm, learning what you like, saving things, even if it's not exactly what you want. Just getting that algorithm to try to start picking up on things that you would want. And then every once in a while, you'll land on something like the coffee table. And you have to snag it. You can't wait. If it's the thing you want and it shows up, go get it immediately. If you think there's going to be a lot of people bidding on that same item, offer them $20 more. Offer to send a Venmo deposit. There's ways to kind of be the first one to get those items if it's something that is really important to you. And don't be afraid of refinishing something like these chairs that I mentioned. Obviously, they were not in a fabric that I would want, but I knew I could refinish them if I got the chairs for a good enough price to begin with. So it's funny, when I saw this house come up on the market, I called a friend who is a real estate agent, and I said, let's go look at this house. I don't know, if I know I'm ready, but I don't know how I'll feel after looking at it. I have to weigh so many things. We came up here, we looked at it. To get it, it was a very long process of going back and forth with the owner. But yeah, immediately I knew that this was one that I wanted to go after. Did not look at another house. This was the only house that I looked at, and luckily was able to get it. But yeah, I knew kind of walking around, and I don't know what brain that is, but I have a brain that, allows me to kind of see the potential of a room, see what it could look like, see where I would put things, see what I want to buy. The most fun part of this process for me is collecting pieces for the house. And just finding things that are perfect for the room, and doing that throughout the whole house was almost as fun as the renovation itself. Everything you see, almost everything in this entire house, is Facebook Marketplace, estate sales, antique stores, thrift stores in this area, Goodwill. I've been to all of them in this area, and I became a huge estate sales shopper through this as well. And the thrill of the hunt, the bargaining, all of that is so much fun. So it's full of secondhand pieces, some that I've had reupholstered, some that are just perfect as is. But yeah, it's eclectic. There's antique pieces, there's super modern pieces, there's pieces with a lot of good patina. That's kind of what I'm drawn towards, is things that tell a story, different materials, metal, marble, wood, fabric, and glass. All of those different things are kind of what I'm attracted to, and it's been so much fun. One last thing that I want to show you in this room is there's two sets of pocket doors here, but this one in particular is just one door and it's huge. It has the original hardware that still works and it has the key and everything. And so this is just an original thing in the house that is incredible. And the size of it is just insane. You don't see, I think, this size, especially in Texas. And so it's a piece of the house that I love to show people and definitely shocks them. So that kind of leads us perfectly into the dining room. This space, again, we've got a beautiful fireplace, which I'll show you in a second, and it was in rough shape. It had, various wallpapers, top and bottom, which thankfully there wasn't fabric on top for me to have to then get to the wallpaper. At least it was just the wallpaper, but I went through peeling back that layer, then I did a skim coat, and then obviously paint. And in this space, I knew that I wasn't going to use a formal dining table and, with it just being me and the dogs and having friends over every once in a while. So I wanted to find a way to make this room kind of multifunctional. And so I found this walnut dining table that's also a ping pong table, which works well for when I have friends over. There's been a lot of fun nights in this room, and it definitely gets used more than it would if it was just a dining room. Another set of chairs that I love that I found. These were originally not great, but I saw the bones, I saw the shape, I saw that they could be better. And so they're super, you just sink into them when you sit down. I think they are perfect in this room just for people, that are watching any ping pong games that are happening. I think the most important piece in this whole room is the original china cabinet, which has not been painted over, still in perfect condition, absolutely stunning. Holds all the things that I never use but are still pretty. And just to think that, all the people that have lived in this house over the years have seen the beauty in this and the value in this and left it as is and taken care of it, I think is just something special to think about. And it's stunning. Behind me, you'll see this gallery wall of women. I can't remember where I initially saw it, but I saw someone do something similar of just sort of collected portraits of people that were painted. And I had this idea that, it starts with one and then it starts with another, and then you sort of see a trend and then you're drawn to them when you're shopping. And so here I am now, I have a wall of women. I'm drawn to things that are conversation starters, that are just a little bit weird, but also interesting, also beautiful and unique. And so this wall is definitely representative of that. A lot of them are just found in random places, but one of them in particular was done by a friend in the, I hope I don't mess this up, but acoustic style, which is wax painting. And so that would be this one here. So a friend of mine, Kelsey, did this one. She did a series of a few different women, and I was so excited. I think I was her first sale of one of her paintings, and it's a cool piece to, within the whole gallery wall, to know that a friend of mine did one of them, and it's actually one of the most impressive at the same time. This is matchbooks I had made for my house. It says the Denton House. It has my Instagram on it, which is @StudyJoeStallard, and it says y'all come back now. So it's just for my friends to pick up and grab on their way out. And it was done for your party. And I'm not the original person to have this idea. I got the idea from someone I follow on Instagram, Tremont Home, I believe. This is, I guess, 2 of the 3 fireplaces that were here in the home when I got here. Thankfully, didn't have to do anything to this one. This one is stained wood. Nobody ever painted over it. I didn't paint over it. I would never. It doesn't have the tile like the other fireplace does, but the next person to buy this house can easily restore that. That's an easy DIY for someone to be able to do. And so, it's so nice to have multiple fireplaces in the house. So in an old Victorian house like this, the way that they set the layout is they would have the dining room, the butler's pantry, and then the kitchen, so that the staff working in between the two spaces had somewhere to do their setup, and that they, that whatever was happening in the kitchen was not interrupting whoever was dining in the dining room. And so I think what makes sense to show you next is the butler's pantry. It's got this really cool swinging door that goes both ways, and I can just see the people, holding their platters going in and out without using the door, and it's got beautiful built-ins, so I'll show you this way. I am no historian, but I believe they categorize this as a Queen Anne Victorian. Definitely Victorian. The Queen Anne portion is the toss-up, but there is a lot of that in this area and in Georgetown, which is nearby. And so, yeah, Victorian and maybe Queen Anne. Don't quote me on that. This room actually is what the prior owner had throughout the house. A lot of is fabric on the walls. This is actually fabric versus maybe like what's popular right now with the limestone wash. It kind of looks like that, but it is a fabric. There was fabric everywhere, a lot of prints and patterns. And so I kind of dialed that back. And I guess my philosophy is you can bring in a lot of pattern and interest through fabrics, pillows, textures, the decor items versus necessarily the pieces that, or the furnishings that stay permanent. I did a little bit of that in some rooms. In the bedroom I put up beadboard throughout the whole space, walls and ceiling, just to provide something, more interesting, but also historic for the house. And so, yeah, I like neutral tones. At least for this house, I do. I want to do the next house maybe like a mid-century modern and completely change my style. So I like to kind of practice in different areas. Definitely not a professional, but it's fun to kind of push myself into those spaces that I haven't done before. So I want to do something different next. This is the butler's pantry. This beautiful built-in holds all of my spices, a lot of my KitchenAid mixer and different bowls and different things, but it's a great kind of prep area, a place to store all of the things that don't go in the kitchen or don't need to. And also in this space, this is one of my favorite original light fixtures in the house. It's just got a really unique shape. And I think it's perfect for this room. And originally, when I purchased the house, this room had kind of a Pepto-Bismol pink walls, a wallpaper trim at the top. I ended up putting up this crown molding, and the floor was kind of the laminate tile that I could easily just peel back, and I ended up putting in this marble mosaic tile down. That was my first ever tile job, and so learned a lot there. Had to cut the tile on the tile saw and grout, and I learned very quickly that small tile takes a lot of grout, and that's a really hard job to not only lay down, but then clean up afterwards. So one of the many things I learned in this house, but the butler's pantry is a really nice little kind of jewel box of the house. Right behind the butler's pantry is the kitchen. I can't wait to show you. This room is filled with so much light. I love being in here, and man, did it look different before. I put in these light fixtures. I had to move them. They were further out. We recentered them over the island. The island was one that sort of had it went to here and then it stepped up and came out, and I wanted just more of a flat workspace. So this is actually a bowling alley lane, Facebook Marketplace. No one's shocked, but I found it on Marketplace. One of the guys that has been helping me on some of the things around the house, he was able to sand it down so that I could refinish it with a stain. And so he also added a bull nose to kind of match the other countertop. What's over there around the other side of the room was there when I bought the house. So I did try to use some of the material that was already here, but bring in some new things as well. The cabinets were kind of a dark blue. The hardware had the sort of, I don't know what they're called, but you pull them out by tucking your fingers up under there. And I never liked them. It always scared me to go under. It's just old. So I did a lot of refresh. I took down the upper cabinets in here. I put these shelves up all by myself. That was my first kind of woodworking, using all of my different tools that I was using for the first time. Really proud of that. Of course, it's not that wildly difficult, but it was new to me, and I'm proud of myself. this beautiful plate rack I want to show you up close. Anybody want to guess where I found it? Facebook Marketplace. Locally as well, but I have to assume that this is from the 1800s. There's no way it's, 1900s. It's so old. It's got kind of wormholes in it. I don't know if it's worm wood, but the detailing of these little spindles and just the different patinas throughout. And it's also just a great storage piece too. So I think it just connects the wood island. It brings in kind of depth and dimension into the space. And so it will stay with the house for the next owners. But I think it really adds something nice to the kitchen. The next thing I want to show you are these little curtains. So I want to make things interesting. And so rather than keeping the cabinet doors that were here, I wanted to kind of bring in some curtains. And so it's funny because my parents, especially my mom, they have touches throughout this whole house of things that they've helped me with. They live 3 hours away, but I have my mom come in here and there to help with different things. And so these curtains I had my mom make, I kind of saw them in my mind, but we were also limited by how much fabric we had, so we had to get creative, but I think they're really cute. It's more interesting than just cabinets the whole way across. So I'm really glad that my mom was able to do that. I love to cook. I, don't cook as much or for as many people, but I definitely come in here and there's space to do anything you want. And so lots of baking, lots of cooking, lots of just, coffee in the mornings. That's kind of my favorite thing. I have these little dimensional things hanging in the window that reflect the light in the morning. And so the light comes in through this room and the whole room is just kind of glittered with different light. And so even just making the coffee in the morning is so special to be in this space. The last thing that I would show you in this room is this beautiful old English pine, I don't even know, armoire kitchen cabinet situation. But this not Facebook Marketplace for once. I found this at an estate sale. Quite close as well in Taylor, but it was sitting out in someone's barn. It was in various pieces, and I just saw kind of the color of the wood, the tone of the wood. I didn't know what it would look like when it was all put together, but for $200, this piece is exactly what this kitchen needed in this space, and it also it's just, there's more storage than you could ever need here. It holds all kinds of things like my dog food and extra plates, glassware, different things. And so I think, I hope that it can stay with the house maybe even when I'm done because it's just so perfectly in this space. This over here, I wish I could have found two, but I only found one at the time. In Georgetown, which again is a town quite close to us, I found this wall sconce. It's so heavy, it's huge. It captures my, again, the material kind of thing that I try to focus on when I'm designing. You've got your brass, you've got your wood. This is actually the shade that came with it. I love it. And man, if I could have found two, that would have been great. I do a lot of Google image searching to try to find, what is this thing that I just found that feels special? Can I find what it actually is? Who made it? Are there more out there if I wanted another one? And I can't find anything on this one. So I don't know if it's handmade or what, but it's definitely a really fun piece. You know what? All the vents in this house were silver. And, well, not all of them. Some of them are brown and I replaced them with new ones, but these in this space, I spray painted them gold. So it is not original, but it definitely serves a purpose. And I was taking a lot of the finishes in this house because I just prefer gold or brass over silver. And so I was trying to kind of update those things in a way that wouldn't break the bank, but that, but that elevated to my style and then just maybe to the times that we're in now. And I think this whole house is a study on, how do you elevate and make something feel expensive or luxurious without spending that. The whole house is secondhand. You can use spray paint to update things without having to buy brand new. And so I just tried to think creatively throughout the whole house about how to do that. I went to school at Texas A&M and studied education, knew I didn't want to teach kind of coming out of school after having worked almost full-time in kind of more of a corporate setting. And so coming out of school, ended up working for Teach for America in their corporate office in New York City, and definitely found myself, I'm artistic, I love design, but I think the business setting, the corporate setting is where I thrive on the sort of professional side. So I definitely have this as my outlet on the personal side, which is the passion of sort of getting that artistic, opportunity to do that on the side. And so, yeah, I was in New York City, worked for Teach for America for a bit, did some executive recruiting, and ultimately landed in the space that I've been in for the past 12 or 13 years, which is private equity, and moved to San Francisco, did that for a long time, and then that's how I ended up later on in Austin, but still in private equity. So I do currently work for a company in San Francisco. I work remotely from home here, and do operations for the company, which is a lot of back office things like HR, IT, compliance, real estate, all that good stuff. The reason the kitchen gets so much light is because it's right off the sunroom, and it's where I keep all my plants. I tried to have the plants throughout the house when I first moved here, but they just weren't very happy, and they're very happy out here. And so are my dogs. This is the enclosed sunroom porch, and this is where I have all my plants. As you can see, this was a light reno. It was different colors before. The flooring was just kind of PVC laminate flooring, but yeah, I try my hand at a green thumb here and there, and this room is just really a happy place for the plants. I think the most exciting thing about this room is if you look up high, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 stained glass leaded windows, and I'll show you when we get to some of the other rooms, but the huge picture windows in some of the bigger rooms have kind of a detail. They're new windows now, but they have a detail at the top with some vertical lines, and I can see in some of the older photos of the house that these were probably the original windows that went in that space when the original windows were in the house. So I love that whoever did this thought of a new way to use them, and they're just beautiful. They reflect the light in a way that makes this room special. You can see it happening here on the walls from those windows. So imagine if they were, in the living room or the office or the bedroom. Just really neat. I have a green thumb. I've been able to keep these things alive for as long as I have. They don't all look super happy, but one of the things I love to do is propagate. So, some plants do it really well and some of them don't, but this is a propagation from another plant where you kind of cut it off, let the stem soak in water for a really long time till it roots, and then you can just create a new plant and keep doing that over and over again. So I don't have a lot of time for that these days, but a lot of these plants were sisters of other plants, but yeah, I try. And sticking with the theme, Facebook Marketplace, some of these plants came from Facebook Marketplace. This one in particular, it's grown quite a bit since I got it. But that's a great place to look for plants that are super expensive, otherwise at a nursery like a fiddle leaf fig, or some of the other, super popular plants in design right now. Check Facebook Marketplace. People are moving and they can't take them, and you can get it for a steal. And sometimes you can get huge, like 7 feet plants that would take you forever to grow. And so I hope I can keep this one alive as long as possible, but it's been a fun addition. Now I'd love to take you back and show you kind of how the house weaves into the other spaces, some that we've seen already, but the bedroom in particular is right this way. Now we are in the stairway. We talked about the fretwork from the entryway a little while back, and now here we are in this space. Another really budget-friendly but high-impact thing that I did here is these floral, framed floral prints. So I was just collecting these prints. As I went along at Goodwill, you can find them for $2, $3 a piece. And then I happened upon a botanical book, a floral botanical book from probably the 50s or so. And I just started picking out ones that I thought went well together or fit in, even just fit in the frames well. And then you can kind of create this gallery wall. I'm sure that this whole thing was 30 bucks. Maybe even less. And so again, I could have kept going through the whole thing if I wanted to. The book has hundreds more pictures to choose from. So it's a really, if you find a book like that, you know, you can use it for so many different things. And the stairwell leads straight into the primary bedroom. I would say originally this house, this never would have been the primary bedroom. They wouldn't have had a primary bedroom downstairs or probably a primary bathroom. But at some point it was put in, and I don't know what this room was beforehand either, but I imagine probably maybe like a gentleman's smoking room, a lady's sitting room, but there's so many spaces down here that, you know, I guess they needed a room for everything back then. So in this room, again, you'll find a set of club chairs that I absolutely love. Another, trying to remember, they're all, it's either Facebook Marketplace or estate sales, but found these, had them reupholstered in a fabric that I really love, especially up close. And they're just great for this space. Again, the walls in this room, this is a room that had fabric on the walls. It was kind of like a burgundy, with a gold thread through it. There was a trim kind of at hip level that was plastic that you could break across your leg. And so I pulled the fabric down. Behind the fabric was a blue and white toile wallpaper, which wasn't very old, but it was actually very pretty. It just wasn't in good enough shape to be able to keep. There was a lot of drywall damage, and so ultimately we pulled all that back. At some point, when I was uncovering the carpet, I found over here by the fireplace, I found kind of like a concrete pad where a mantle likely was before. And I went back to one of the original pictures that I have of the house, and I could see that there was a fireplace here at one time. And so knowing that, and knowing that I wanted to restore one back, again, it's not working, but I did want to bring that idea back into the space. I started collecting these pieces. So I got the mantle from an antique store in Salado, which is just north of here. I found the tile, which is Zalige clay tile, on Facebook Marketplace. Somebody had a huge project in their house and they had the perfect amount left over. I'm saying I had 2 pieces left from this job that it was the perfect amount somehow. And then this cover as well. And so, oh, and then the best part maybe even is this marble fireplace hearth that I found in a nearby town. But, you know, just putting all the pieces back together, even though it doesn't work, it's such a statement in this room, and I'm glad that I could bring it back in. The curtains, I didn't want them to be the focal point. I wanted them to blend into the wall, and so this is a color in the house that I've used many times. It's Sherwin-Williams shiitake. It's in the entryway, on the beadboard below, it's in the kitchen on the cabinets, and it's in this room. And so again, I wanted the curtains to kind of blend into the wall, have this be kind of a soothing space, and I did. They're just Amazon. They're a really heavy kind of linen that works really well in this room. And here is kind of a good example of the window that I was talking about with the vertical pieces. That originally, the windows on the back porch up at the top, I imagine originally those would fit in a window like this throughout the house. And so I didn't want to hide that when I was getting curtains for the room, and I ended up looking for some shutters so that I could close the window, you know, at night and from the outside world, but still let light in and also show off that detail of the window itself. And if you spin around, the other thing on this room, kind of where I started with the design, is just a gallery wall of a lot of landscape art and prints that I found in my hunts. Again, I just wanted this room to feel sort of soothing and relaxing and nothing too exciting. Let's head to the office where I spend most of my time since I work from home. It's one of the first rooms that I did in the renovation because I knew I was going to be spending so much time there. And again, we're in the entryway here. Another set of pocket doors. And this is the office. So in this room, it was probably like a lime green yellow, and it had stenciled butterflies. And so I knew that had to go quite quickly. And so I ended up painting it. I did a color match for Faro and Ball Sulking Room Pink. And it's not exact because Faro and Ball is the best, and color matches will never work, but it definitely captures kind of what I wanted in here. I had to do a lot of drywall repair before I did that. And yeah, it ended up being a really great place. I love working in here. Between calls, I'll just kind of pause and look at my artwork or look at, something in the room. And it's definitely a space that I don't mind being in, 8-9 hours a day, 5 days a week. So the original light fixture in this room was kind of like a Tiffany, but not actual Tiffany stained glass situation. And I wanted to bring in some brass. And so I found this. I won't even say it because you've heard it so many times. And I wanted to do something different with the bulbs. And I saw Heidi Collier do a similar chandelier in a dining room with the round bulbs instead of, a different, whatever the classic style is. And so, yeah, I love how it turned out. And I went through so many iterations behind the desk of what to do there. Was it kind of, I had this antique shelf, I tried just artwork by itself, but nothing seemed to make sense. So I ended up doing these shelves, and I nailed it. I think that's what it needed in this space, and also can show off all of my tchotchkes. The desk, nothing that exciting, but it was a $50 find that I just ended up painting black. It's a dining room table for sure, and it's great for spreading out all of my notebooks and different things that I have to do throughout the day. And the scale is also right for the room. With a room this size, you want something, to anchor the space that's large enough and solid enough that feels purposeful. So, yeah, I think some of my favorite art is in this room, and so I can show you over here. I found this piece at an antique store up in Temple, and I did end up looking up the artist Bonnie Welch, and it's nothing crazy well known, but she's definitely a well-known artist from the 70s, and this was kind of a starting off point for the room as well. You can see that I pulled some of the pinks here, the blues here for the fireplace, which was painted when I got it. I would never. And so I love sort of sitting at the desk and looking at this painting. It reminds me of California. I lived in California for about 5 years. Thankfully, I get to go back for work quite often, but I love that one. And then the last piece of art in this room that I would probably point out is right here. I know nothing about this. I don't know the artist or anything, but I found it in a store in Minnesota as well, and they had it mounted this way, and I also feel like it just goes really well in this room, and it's so different from kind of the other art that I have throughout the house. This feels very modern. This feels very, abstract. So yeah, it's kind of mixing those different pieces. You've got the antiques, you've got the modern, and it can all work together at the end of the day. So yeah, I spend a lot of time in here and I love it. Before you go, if you remember, I mentioned that stamped wood under the stairs from the man who built the house, T. Denton. I want to show you. It's just over here behind many doors. So in here, if you look up high, you can see T. Denton, Bartlett, Texas. It was such a cool find. What's interesting with this house is nobody has shown me, the prior owners didn't point out all these neat things. I sort of had to uncover them and find them myself. And so finding that was really neat. I am a home body. I could not leave this house for 5 days in a row and not even realize it. So home for me, I love to move around too. So home isn't necessarily a certain building, but it's where your things are. It's where, you know, you walk in the door and you can just be yourself. You can be alone. You can be sitting on the couch, you know, watching your trash TV and not feel judged. It's where, you know, you come to be with your pets, your friends, your family. It's a safe space. It's a place to sort of just drop your guard in a way. And then also, you know, if you are into design, if you are into creativity, it's an outlet for that as well. For a lot of people who, you know, are similar to me, who aren't designers but have such an interest in that, it's that outlet for them. So yeah, home is so important to me, and it doesn't have to be this house. It doesn't have to be, you know, any particular house. It's just a thing where my things are, where I feel safe, where I'm with my pets, where you know, it's just comfort.
Today we're taking you to Austin, Texas, where our hosts Leanne Valenti and Charlie Rice show us how to entertain in their 700 square foot bungalow. Charlie gives us a quick tour of their home before 6 of their closest friends arrive for a Japanese-style dinner party.
It's the first house I bought, and it was really rough shape, it was tear-down shape. And the first thing I did was come in with my dad, and we just started tearing down walls and drywall. And it was really a blank canvas, but I knew I wanted to make it a great place to host 10 people, be able to really comfortably host a dinner party, and have a lot of seating in the living room.
Meanwhile, Leanne walks us through their menu for the evening, from preparing the most delicious dishes.
I personally love kale. A lot of people think it's too healthy tasting, but one of my favorite ways to prepare it is to grill it so that it really breaks down the fibers and gives it a nice smokiness.
To curating the perfect sake sampling.
We have a handful of different sake for our friend to try tonight. I love offering sake with a dinner because, unlike wine, it's low or no acidity and 0 tannin, and so it really doesn't require as precise of pairings, and sakes go really well with a wide variety of food.
So come along with us as Leanne and Charlie pull off a bento-style feast in less than 4 hours. You won't want to miss this.
I got carried away telling that story, and we only have an hour left, so I'm gonna have Charlie come and help me cut these persimmons for the salad, and then I'll show you how we do the miso soup and the kale and the salmon. Charlie, if you don't mind. Welcome, Homeworthy. I'm Leanne Valenti.
And I'm Charlie Rice.
And this is our little Austin bungalow. We're actually about to host a dinner party, so we're excited to have you here.
And there's loads to do and no time to waste, so come on in and let's get started.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Be sure to visit our website, homeworthy.com, to discover amazing furniture, art, accessories, and more, all handpicked by our editors to help transform your house into a home. All of the items are inspired by the episodes you see here on Homeworthy. Enjoy!
All right, we're expecting 6 of our closest friends here in just a couple hours, and I prepared tonight's menu. It's a Japanese home-style menu, and I sourced a bunch of beautiful produce from the farmer's market, and I'm excited to take you step by step through how to make a bento-style meal.
And while she's doing that, I'm going to give you a little tour of our home. It's only 768 square feet, but it's designed perfectly to host our closest friends and dinner parties. Well, here we are in the living room. This is the first house I bought, and it was really rough shape, it was tear-down shape. And the first thing I did was come in with my dad, and we just started tearing down walls and drywall. And it was really a blank canvas, but I knew I wanted to make it a great place to host 10 people, be able to really comfortably host a dinner party, and have a lot of seating in the living room. And one of the first things I did after hiring Avery Cox, my designer, was we went to Round Top and just started shopping around and found some really great antiques. We found these 2 safari chairs. They're French and from the 1890s. This funny little bench here with little secret compartments. And then we found those side tables, and then the real piece of the resistance was this back bar that's also from the 1890s, and we just knew that would be a really great focal point and be able to sneak in a lot of storage. We've got a lot of our serverware in there, records, cookbooks, and it's our bar, and it's really kind of evolved over time. I mean, we added these lights into it, we changed out the wooden shelves for glass shelves. It's just a really great focal point. So this was actually one of the first things I'd picked out in my mind. It's a design by R.W. Guild out of New York. And in my last apartment, I just like really wanted it, but I couldn't justify buying it for like such a temporary space. The artwork's in Matea Perota, which was, I feel like the art was actually the hardest thing for me to find. It just took a lot of, we worked with a art consultant and just went through, I mean, hundreds of options. Just like, I did a lot of photoshopping to try to see how they would look. And this is very different than what I thought it was going to be. I thought we were going to go with like a very blue and green colors, and I love that it ended up like kind of this side of the house is all just like these warm red and oranges with little accents of green and blue. And then if you go into the kitchen, it's all like cool blues and greens with little accents of red. So the thing I really got in my head around the size was wanting kind of small furniture. I wanted a big sofa and then kind of modular, small pieces. And I feel like I was really fortunate. So my next door neighbor is he's become a very dear friend of us, and he's a really great designer. His name is Mark Ashby. And I feel like just like kind of because the design process took more years than I thought it would be, like I really had a chance to get to know them, and they all have like super wild design, like lots of colors, bold patterns. And I'd say when I started, it was like I was much more muted and just kind of hanging out with them, getting encouragement from them. They really pushed my boundaries, and I'm so glad I did. Like every decision they made that I kind of felt trepidation on like has worked out so well and made the house just a beautiful piece. I was an engineer. I was a software developer for an oil and gas company. Not in my wheelhouse, but I grew up in a 1920s house in Corpus Christi. My mom had done it in Art Deco style, so it was all kinds of crazy colors: peaches, light greens, light blues, yellows, pinks. So yeah, a white house was never really an option for me. So we like to set out stuff out here on the coffee table, so it's a really easy transition after dinner to kind of get people over into the living room. So we have a couple things of chocolate, some dried fruit, and we'll set out some apples, and then we'll serve it with tea. And it's nice to have a reason for everybody to come into the living room. It's a little more comfortable than just hanging out, chatting around the dinner table. So when I bought the house, the living area was all cut up into smaller rooms, and one of the biggest areas that I really had a say in the design was how the layout was going to be. And I knew I wanted to be an open floor plan. I knew that would make the space feel bigger and make it easier to host friends. And so directly across from the living room is the dining room, which is, I mean, the whole concept of my design was to be able to very comfortably host 10 people. I wanted 10 seats around the dining table, at least 10 chairs in the living room. And then we got these super fun pieces off First Dibs and Urban Electric lighting. So even before I met Leanne, like I loved cooking, so I had a really strong sense of how I wanted the layout to be. One of my best friends, we like cooked and hosted dinner parties all the time. And so I knew that we needed to have plenty of workspace for us. So in my last apartment, it was really small and a lot of open cabinetry, and I was just really tired of looking at all my dishes, all my cookware. So it was really important to me to have everything kind of tucked away so I don't have to see it all the time. And then because it's such a small space and I have so much stuff in the kitchen, so it's really important to have everything tucked away. Lots of clever storage. We have our spice rack here, just all our spices. And then this was one that my cabinet designers really fought me and told me that it wasn't possible. But we have this pot rack that actually pulls out and just stores a ton of things. And they had to cut kind of the trim at the top because it's just really tight. And then of course we got the panel-ready fridge. And then this stove is a Chambers. It's from the 1940s, and I actually grew up with one of these in my house in Corpus. And then my sister bought one about 5 years ago, and it's just got these really great features. It has a broiler that I think Leanne's going to use later, and a little fry well in the back. And just like a super cool piece. They're built to last. They're never going to break down. Really wanted a big island with lots of space to prep and then people to sit. I ended up cooking a lot when people are over, so it's nice to have a place where they can sit to watch. And then we also found these bar stools at Round Top, but they're so fun because they tuck away when they're not in use, and they just add such a nice little pop of color. And then this is the bathroom. And I love having the double shower, just gives you lots of space. The way I worked with Avery was really, I would find these like pieces and just be like, we need to make this work. And so this was, it's from the 1930s, it's from the Waldorf Astoria in New York, and they took it out. I found it salvaged online, and it was one of those pieces where I was just like, I bought this, let's make this work, and then we kind of designed the rest of the bathroom around it. As you can see, right behind me is the bedroom. Let's go take a look at that while Leanne finishes her prep. This is an armoire from the 1970s. This was a wallpaper I actually had in my old apartment that I just loved. And so we added it back in, and then this was a little art piece that I got in San Francisco while just like wandering the streets, this little bison. Yeah, and I guess with that, let's go see what Leanne's up to in the kitchen.
To prepare for the dinner party, Leanne and Charlie did their grocery shopping earlier in the week.
Okay, we're here at the downtown farmers market, and we're gonna go see what produce we can find and pick up some flowers as well. All right, so I was able to get some of these beautiful Fuyu persimmons from the farmer's market. We were just in Japan, and the persimmon trees were loaded with fruit. And what I love in Japan, you see persimmon used a lot in savory applications, not just desserts and pastries like here. And so I'm super excited to recreate this salad for my friends. It's persimmon shirae, and I'll include the recipe in the show notes, but it's a creamy dressing that doesn't include any dairy on these gorgeous persimmons. That these are actually the firm persimmons that you can slice and eat. And then I was also able to get these gorgeous mushrooms from the farmer's market, so chestnut and pioppino from Hi-Fi Mycology. We're gonna broil these and use them in a miso soup along with the green onion. And then this kale, beautiful kale. I personally love kale. A lot of people think it's too healthy tasting, but one of my favorite ways to prepare it is to grill it so that it really breaks down the fibers and gives it a nice smokiness. And we're gonna use this kale grilled as part of a warm salad with carrot and parsnip tempura, which is a Japanese stir fry. The carrots and the parsnips I just cut into thin matchsticks and am doing a nice saute with some just sake, salt, sugar, and water. And this recipe I'll make sure to include in the show notes because it is a must-have for Japanese home-style cooking. It's one of those recipes that you can make ahead of time and let come to room temperature, and it's even better. So that's what we have going here. And then in this double-lidded donabe, I've started the rice. So it's a simple Japanese white rice. We're gonna use this as the base with salmon, the warm kale salad with tempura, miso soup, and the persimmon salad. And that's gonna be our complete menu for tonight. So I'm gonna take you step by step. The next thing is preparing the mushrooms in this broiler for the miso soup. All right, so to prep these mushrooms, we're gonna just pile them over here onto this sheet tray. I'm actually just gonna drizzle them with a little oil, season simply with salt, and broil them. And then I'll show you how simple it is to make this miso soup. I know that one of my friends, especially Jenny, this is for you, thinks that miso soup sounds intimidating. It's not. It's so simple, and I can't wait to show you just how simple it is. A lot of Americans, my friend Jenny included, feels like cooking Japanese food at home is pretty intimidating. And, you know, I think that rightfully so, there's quite a few components that come into it, and the ingredients can be unfamiliar. And so it's maybe a little bit interesting, you might say, that a Texan like me is making a Japanese home-style dinner for her friends here in Austin. But I came about loving Japanese home-style food in a really kind of happenstance way when a good friend of mine and I started volunteering at a vegetable farm here in Austin. This is in my early 20s. It just so happened that we were getting paid in vegetables. My friend, is having grown up in the countryside of Japan, would invite me over to her apartment after we got finished working on the farm, and we would cook up all the vegetables for the week. And bit by bit, week by week, I was introduced to one recipe after another, one amazing way to use vegetables that I'd never thought of. And that was how I got my first curious glimpse into Japanese cooking. And I had then pursued a culinary degree at the Natural Victorian, which is a health-focused culinary school focused in more Eastern traditions, as well as my friend Naoko encouraged me to go actually live in Japan. So at that point, I was about 26 years old. And I lived in the countryside of Japan with her family, and had one of the most formative experiences of my life. And it's pretty much set my trajectory, my professional trajectory, of having started here in Austin a restaurant and catering called Bento Picnic, where I focus in home-style Japanese cooking. And at the moment, I'm taking a little sabbatical, so I don't have the shop open for you to come and eat right this second, but I do have a cookbook proposal in the works for you, as well as a blog that I'm updating with recipes, and I'm looking forward to sharing more with you soon. All right, so we're gonna set this for 10 minutes. The mushrooms in the broiler should be perfect right after that. We're just gonna ladle it with the hot broth, and that will be perfect. I got carried away telling that story, and we only have an hour left, so I'm gonna have Charlie come and help me cut these persimmons for the salad, and then I'll show you how we do the miso soup and the kale and the salmon. Charlie, if you don't mind. Well, if you know Austin, you know Barton Springs. It was a Wednesday after work about 2 years ago, and we had both gone to just cool off, and we were introduced by a mutual friend. So in the age of online dating, miraculously, we met totally organically. I'm just cutting these onions on a bias so that they're ready to go into the miso soup as soon as those mushrooms come out, so that we can just set and forget the miso soup. Already you can see that this carrot parsnip tempura, I'm gonna cut the heat on it. It is literally perfect. And then I also cut the heat on the rice, and I'm just gonna leave that double-lidded donabe to set so that none of the heat escapes, and it'll also be the perfect temperature for when we turn our attention to plating. Okay, so we went ahead and moved the tempura and the rice to the back burner for now, since those are both completely done. And we're gonna turn our attention to getting the broth ready for the miso soup. I already sliced up the onions for it, and we're just gonna get those portioned into each of our little soup cups here. And then the mushrooms should be done at any moment. Charlie is a whiz at getting things ready back here. He already finished the persimmons, so I'm gonna have him help me portion out the mushrooms into the soup cups while I finish the broth. So the broth is here. I'll show you, it's already in this adorable donabe, polka dot donabe that we just got and we're obsessed with. The broth is simmering here. This is actually For our friends who are vegetarian, this is going to be the broth that we share with them. So this is a shiitake and kombu based broth. You'll notice we have 3 friends who are vegetarian, so we pulled 3 of these little black soup cups so that when time comes to share the finished product with our friends, we know which ones are the bonito and which ones are the vegetarian. Just a little tool of the trade. I worked for years in the service industry, so I'm always kind of trying to think ahead and just really honestly figure out how to make things as easy on myself as I can. Even if I'm working, I like to have a good time. So I don't want to put myself into a position where I'm going to be overly stressed. And so this is a really good example. It's an hour before my friends are here, and what I'm doing is just getting the broth ready so that when they come, all I have to do is ladle it right over the green onion and mushrooms that are prepped in the cups, and I'll be able to serve them a perfect cup of miso soup. So this is something that I wanted to show you, because miso, if you just try to mix it in directly into the pot, is gonna be all globby. And so what you wanna do is put a little bit of miso in your ladle and then make sort of a bit of a dilution so that by the time that it comes into the broth, it's already beautifully incorporated and you're not gonna get any lumps in that miso soup. Julia Child says, never apologize for your food, and I would agree. Cooking is really something that is an art in and of itself, and there's so many factors, you never know quite which way it's going to go. It's really important ultimately at the end of the day that you're present and you're able to enjoy what it is that you've created. Whether it's exactly what you had in mind or not, the fact is that this is what's in front of you, and your friends are there to join you, and so to just really be able to take a step back, have a deep breath, and enjoy. What I want to do next is bring you guys to show you the grilled kale and the seared salmon. I'm going to just set this back over here. Again, all of my burners are off. And so that's where I want them, because by the time I come back in, everything will be at that perfect temperature and I can just go ahead and start plating. Charlie is gonna portion the mushrooms into the cup bowls while we go outside to do the grilling of the kale and searing of the salmon. So if you wanna come with me. I'm getting situated over here at my grill station. This is where, in the cast iron, I'm gonna sear the crispy skinned salmon, and then I'm gonna also get a nice char on the kale. So part of living in a small house is that Charlie really had the foresight is to kind of expand the kitchen space so that we're also able to make use of this beautiful gas grill and countertop. And so for this kale, which I'm gonna get started with first, you can see I left the stems on. This is literally one of the easiest ways to prepare kale. And I'm just gonna lay it out over my preheated grill so that it just turns into this nice bright green and has some nice charred bits. And it doesn't take very long at all. So part of Japanese menu design is having 5 colors, 5 tastes, and 5 cooking techniques. So you can see that, you're gonna see that in tonight's menu for sure. We have the bright green of the kale. This salmon that I prepped by marinating with just some sake and salt is done on a cross section and portioned out already so that it's gonna be just super presentable. And also, honestly, just super easy to manage and cook without having it fall apart on you. All right, so this batch of kale is done. What did I tell you? It goes so fast. I'm just gonna move it over to my clean sheet tray here and then do my next batch. As I mentioned before, you know, kale gets a bad rap, but when you prepare something well and really treat it in a way that honors what's going on with it, in this case, long, fibrous strands, it can be something that's just so enjoyable and so surprising. And that's one of the things that I love to do with my cooking, is surprise people, of saying like, oh my gosh, I didn't think that I liked kale, or I didn't think I liked tomatoes, but you did it. You won me over. And so that's really one of my goals in especially preparing these vegetables that I love, is to win people over. Awesome, this is perfect. You can see it's still bright green in places, but it's also got a nice char. Oh my gosh, that's gonna be so good. Okay, and now we're gonna turn our attention to the salmon. You can see the oil is glistening, so it should be simmering. I have this small piece that I'm gonna see if it sizzles, it's ready. So we're gonna put it skin side down so that we get a nice sear on the skin first. And you can see I pulled it out of the marinade before bringing it over to the grill, and I dried it off really well, because what we're trying to do is get crispness, and if there's any moisture there at all, it's just going to kind of simmer instead of fry, and what we want is a good sear. Okay, so why are we doing this outside on the grill in a pan when we could be doing it inside? A couple of reasons. One, it's a really nice day outside, and I already shared with you that I want to make things as fun and enjoyable for myself as I can, so that's one of the big reasons. Another reason is it makes the cleanup a lot easier. So basically, it's to say you have some oil splattering outside on the grill, not a big deal. Inside, gonna take more to get that cleaned up. But by all means, if you do not have an outdoor grill setup like this, you can absolutely, make some crispy skinned salmon perfectly over your indoor range, as well as, honestly, you could sear the kale in a cast iron pan as well, and that's going to be just as good. In fact, I've done that many a times myself. So as we get a nice golden sear on the skin, I'm just turning it around so that it gets some char on the pink sides too. And you can see that because it's been cut into these portion sizes already, and it also has the cure from the marinade, it's holding together beautifully. This is not a tricky dish to execute on. It really wants you to cook it. It really just is offering itself up to you at this point. This is actually a very traditional Japanese way of preparing salmon. What's funny, you may not believe me, is that this is often you see part of a Japanese breakfast. And so while, it may seem like too early for a fillet of fish for a lot of Americans, this is something that you would oftentimes in the nicest hotels find on a breakfast buffet. And so that was how I was first introduced to it. I love it any time of day, and I know most of my friends would prefer to have it in the evening rather than the morning, so we're making it for dinner. The salmon really is going to depend on the heat of your range, how quickly. So this heat on the outdoor range is a little more diffused, and so it's going to take closer to 10 minutes to get a nice char on all the sides. But on the indoor range, it is quite a bit more intense, the heat, and so that takes less than 5 minutes. But really, you're going by, you can see if you come close, you're wanting to see some nice char and the crispy skin. And as soon as you see that, the pieces are cut so small that really you don't need to worry about doneness through the middle. It's gonna be perfectly cooked all the way through. So when you're buying salmon, there's a couple things that you want to look for. You want to look for the integrity of the flesh. Sometimes when that fillet is made, it can be handled a little rough, and you know, when they're pulling the pin bones out, it can be really pulled apart. And that kind of will inhibit your ability to make this as nice of a presentation. So integrity of the flesh. Also, to get this crispy skin, first of all, you want to make sure that the skin doesn't have scales on it. And it is way easier to go ahead and ask them to do that for you at the grocery store, to go ahead and scale the skin, than it is to do at home. Most home cooks don't have the tool for scaling the salmon. And so those are two things to look out for: the integrity of the flesh, and to make sure that for skin on salmon, the scales are taken off. Okay, so this took all of 15 minutes at the most out here grilling the kale and searing the salmon. So now this is something that we can check off our list and head back inside to see how Charlie's doing setting the table. Sometimes things need a little feminine touch. How's it going in here, Charlie?
It's all about ready.
Ew, love it.
Yeah, so setting the table, we love to do that before guests arrive, just so we're not having to like kind of navigate and do that once they're here. And usually it's like we want to be able to focus on any last minute touches we need to do with the food. And we're not big on name tags. Our only rule is like we just don't let couples sit next to each other. And because Land's doing more bento style today, a lot of times we would serve more family style, but today it's all small dishes. It'll all be plated. And so just kind of an assortment of dishes that we've picked up from our travels and all over the place. We don't put all the glassware on the table because we'll set up a little drink station for people when they come in, so they can grab drinks, grab a little appetizer, and then they just bring their drink to the table. Sometimes we assign that to a guest. You know, everybody likes to come in and say, oh, what can I do to help? And it's nice to have a little task for them to do. And keeps them, especially if we're a little behind, it gives us a little more time. So after dinner, we usually clear everything out. People might still be sitting around, and we'll pull out an after dinner game. One of our favorites is The Mind. And it really just, if anybody's feeling a little quiet, like it just gets everybody involved and talking and laughing.
The very first date Charlie ever invited me on, he cooked for me here, and we sat in this little corner like two lovebirds. It was so sweet. Mm-hmm. He's really, really romantic. Charlie's specialty is Thai cooking, and he made me an amazing Thai meal. So this shira dressing, shira means white, and ia means to mix. And so this is traditionally a tofu-based dressing that you see a lot in Japan that gets used on all different fruits and vegetables. For my shira, I added some hydrated sunflower seeds and just a dollop of olive oil so that it turned it into a creamier dressing, as opposed to sometimes shiras you see are kind of like a crumbly dressing, where I prefer the emulsified because it just feels a little bit more refined. And also I keep a pack of these gloves handy because, again, in food service, it's just so nice to be able to keep your hands clean but move quickly through a task. And so I like to have those on hand for, you know, when I'm preparing food for my friends. We have a handful of different sake for our friend to try tonight. I love offering sake with a dinner because, unlike wine, it's low or no acidity and zero tannin, and so it really doesn't require as precise of pairings, and sakes go really well with a wide variety of food. And in fact, because they all have different flavor profiles in and of themselves, they're all going to bring out different qualities and characteristics. So whereas one may bring out the sweetness of the persimmon, the other may bring out the smokiness of the dashi. And for my friends tonight, I'm going to invite them to sip and sample across all of these 4 sake and decide which one's their favorite, and so I can get their feedback on that. And then I also whipped up a little mocktail. So this one is called amazake, which translates to sweet sake, and it's that very first step of making sake, adding in the culture to the rice and letting it just ferment about, a week or so, and it's before any of the sugars have turned into alcohol, and so you still get a really nice fermented rice flavor without any of the alcohol, and it's sweeter. So what we did to kind of balance out the sweetness is add some fresh yuzu as well as lemon, and that's a easy mocktail that you can just batch up ahead of time. What we're gonna do is just shake it over ice and pour it. Charlie's got these really gorgeous glasses that we're gonna serve them in. So Charlie's bringing over all of the glassware so that as soon as our friends arrive, we can start pouring some drinks for them and, make sure that we get the party started right. It's a Japanese tradition that you wouldn't pour sake for yourself. And it is actually considered bad luck to pour sake for yourself. And so we're going to make sure to pour the glasses for our friends tonight. I don't know all the lore around why that superstition got started. But what I love about not being able to pour your own sake is that it really encourages this sort of attentiveness to your friends who you're spending time with and sharing a meal with, and that you might take turns and pour each other a drink. It's just that kind of extra little specialness that I love. Okay, our friends are arriving any minute now, and I do like to have a little bit of theater in that I still want to be plating dinner when they're arriving. It's one of the things that, even though I'm not going to be actively cooking, I can still kind of be in motion and show that there's not just like food that's been sitting on the table for who knows how long. And so what I want to have ready by the time that they arrive is this snack spread, and that way they have a little something to nibble and delight in while I finish the plating. And so for the snacks, what we have is a cream cheese dip with some white miso, sweet white miso. And then we have the cucumber as well as pink radish pickles. And this is a unique thing that we actually brought back from Japan. I'm super excited to see how people respond to it, but it's a pickle made with burdock root. And it's got this really toothsome, interesting texture to it. And so again, with all the colors, we're gonna get a full rainbow on this snack tray for them, along with some nice crisp with these tamari rice crackers. I'm arranging everything so that it really invites people to make their way around the tray in pockets. So you could say it's a little bit of a bento style, that everything kind of has its own place in the tray, and those pockets of color just really pop. I am finishing up this appetizer spread. Charlie just went to grab some ice because we love to have just a bucket of sparkling water set up on the way in so that our friends can help themselves to a water before they even come in the door. They have a refreshment. And it also, as you can see, we have limited space. We don't like to clutter it. A small space can feel cluttered really quick. So having sparkling waters on the front porch is a great way to greet our guests. Okay, our friends are just arriving, and just in time we have all of our snacks spread set up, as well as our sake, our mocktail, and Charlie's just pulling the edamame off the stove. So we are ready. Oh, thank you. We'll probably bring it back for lasagna, but thank you. Hey, how are you doing? Come in.
Hello, beautiful.
How are you?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Doing
Thank you for
so
having me.
well. Thank you. Thank you.
That
Thank
was
you
a
for
good one.
being here. Yes. Cheers. Cheers. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Thank you for having you.
Gotcha.
I didn't get you.
So we're just about ready. We have all of the dishes plated and set. The one last thing we're gonna do is ladle the miso soup so that that goes on as a hot component, and then we'll invite our friends to come sit down. This is the miso broth. Miso does settle, so you just wanna give it a nice stir before ladling it on top of the soup. And, you know, I always have friends asking how they can help. This is one area where I'm gladly going to accept some help. I'm going to ask Kelsey to go ahead and bring each one of these over to the table. And then as soon as all the soups are set, we'll invite everybody to come sit down.
I can't, it's tricky. I have to enlist someone because I can't pour it myself.
Oh yeah, that's a good way to make a friend.
Tell me something.
Which one did you say was good with the person?
The Bride of the Fox. This is that last piece.
So cool.
Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. You can start with the miso soup while it's nice, piping hot still. I do like to sip it and then use the chopsticks to eat what's there, but there is a small spoon there if you would like to use a spoon. Yeah.
My goodness. Wow.
In your bowl, that's what I would have next is kind of work your way around the bowl. There's rice, a grilled kale salad, parsnip and carrot tempura, and then the salmon with wasabi furikake or avocado. And this is kind of like a savory foray into persimmons. So I had multiple times when we were in Japan just now, persimmon shirae. It's a salad made with tofu. Shira means white and a means to mix, and so it's like a white dressing that's dairy-free. And I also added in sunflower seed into the dressing itself to make it more creamy, and then as a topping. Yeah, so y'all enjoy.
Thank you. Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping guides.